Hello again, it's Gary. I'm back again with you to talk about the Bible. It's Sunday, July 17th, 2011. My website is jesuswillsaveyou.me and my videos are there. We're in the book of Matthew, chapter 13. Jesus is telling a lot of parables at this point. Yesterday we finished with the wheat and the weeds, a troubling parable in that at the end of the time when Jesus comes back, his angels will separate the wheat from the weeds, the wheat being Christians, the weeds being non-Christians. The wheat will go to heaven to live with their Father forever, and weeds will go to hell to live in damnation forever. Now that's troubling. It's hard to grasp your mind around. We all have a choice. Which way do we want to go? And I just pray that people out there will choose the correct way. He gets into some more parables here in verse 31. He says another story is the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed which a man sowed in a field. It's the smallest, but when it's grown it becomes the largest of the garden herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and find shelter in its branches. This is kind of the way that we're to become when we become Christians. We're to become small and insignificant, just like the Beatitude said at the beginning of Matthew. We're to be humble, meek, mournful, craving righteousness and peace, not making waves, not causing anger or problems amongst each other. The mustard seed is a tiny little seed that becomes a huge bush. Christianity is much the same way. It started out in Jesus' time with only 12 people who were following Jesus, and it started growing from there. And it looked like it was going to die. I mean, after Jesus went to heaven, most of the disciples were slaughtered. So through a few of them spreading the word, it became, what it is today, which is a huge tree. The numbers just grew enormously. In the picture language, also in the Old Testament, a tree was a powerful nation, and the birds were other nations that receive protection from that all-powerful nation. In the same way, us Christians, we find our security when God rules us. So it's a good little parable. Another one is about leaven. I'm not much on baking, so he says the kingdom of heaven is like leaven, sourdough, which a woman took and covered over in 3 measures of meal or flour till it was all leavened. When you bake bread, you add yeast to it, and it leavens the bread or makes it grow. And this is another kind of a picture of the growth of Christianity, how it will multiply all over the world and even just in everyone's individual life. It multiplies us. It makes us so much better than we used to be, with purpose and security and peace and not worrying. It's just no fear. It's just a wonderful thing. It grows over time. It doesn't happen all at once, but the leaven in this picture, I guess, per a commentary, would make about 50 pounds of bread, which would feed 100 people. Tiny little bit of yeast would do this, and that's what Christianity is. It just has to catch on with a few people, and then it spreads. When we become Christian, our character changes. It's supposed to. It takes a while, but it shows to other people in society how a person should act, and it changes society for the better. So the hiddenness of the kingdom is in this parable also. It's hidden inside the bread. Nobody knows how it grows, but it does grow. God grows it. He uses people as disciples for him, but God does the work. We just spread the message and pray for God to do the work that needs to be done. In 34 and 35, it says he only talked in parables, and he didn't talk in anything but parables. In 35, it says, in refers to Psalms in the Old Testament. He will utter things that have been hidden since the foundation of the world, and that's the truth here. I mean, Jesus is saying brand new things. It's all hinted at during the Old Testament, but it was never really brought out into the open till now, and Jesus was spreading the word about the new covenant and him being the king and him being the kingdom of heaven or kingdom of God, and that he would live in us and create his kingdom inside us. And this was stuff that, people who believed Jesus would understand it, and they would seek the parables out and study them. People who didn't care really about God and couldn't see the Old Testament and the signals it was given would not understand. And it's that way today too. Unfortunately, most don't understand. That's why I'm trying to spread it to people who do not understand, to gain understanding and to let them know how beautiful and wonderful this is, which is a great segue into the next couple of parables. The next one, verses 36 through 43 explain the weeds and the wheat, and we've talked about that. 44 is another little parable, a couple of parables. It starts, the kingdom of heaven is like something precious buried in a field, which a man found and reburied, and in his joy goes and sells everything he has and buys that field. That's how precious this is. It means everything. Our life on this earth is here and gone. We're talking about forever here. Where are you going to spend forever? Do you believe we were created? I do. A God created us. One God created us. I believe this God created us, the God of the Holy Bible, the God of the Jews, Jehovah. Everything's in this book, which could not have been made up. This is too beautiful to be made up. Man couldn't have made this book. This book was inspired by God, written by man. To get Jesus in your life is the most precious thing you can ever acquire. And as the signs in here say, it's worth giving up everything, because our life here is a very short duration compared to eternity. In fact, in the times of Jesus, people would often bury their valuables. I don't think they had too many safes back then, or safe deposit boxes. They'd bury their valuables or money in a field, especially like if they went out to war, they would bury their money, and then they may never come back, so it would stay there. And this was a kind of a picture language of somebody finding the treasure, that is finding the Lord, and giving everything he had to acquire him. In 45 and 46, it's the same type of parable about a dealer in jewelry who finds a pearl, and it's the greatest pearl he's ever found. And he went and sold everything he had to find it. It's about relinquishing everything. It's not just our property if we need to relinquish. It's our wishes, our wants, our relationships, our habits, our lives. It's everything. To get to Jesus, it's everything. What are we willing to give up? I don't know. I haven't given up a whole lot, I must admit. But if it came down to it, I would. I believe I would. And we all have to be ready to do that. Lay down our lives as necessary to keep Jesus. In 47 through 50, it's another parable similar to the wheat and the weeds. It's compared to a dragnet which was cast into the sea and gathered fish of all kinds. When the fish came in, the men sat down and they separated the good from the bad. And the righteous were to go to God, and the wicked, the bad fish, were cast into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping, wailing, and grinding of teeth. This is mentioned more than once. It's talking about Christians and non-Christians. Christians will live with God forever, and non-Christians will not. And I know that the temptation is to say, well, what a bigoted, biased religion. I didn't make up the rules. I'm not God. I didn't write the book. You know, I'm sorry. It's the way it is. And anyone tries to tell you different is lying to you. Every God that's mentioned is not a God. By being a good person doesn't get you to heaven. You have to believe in Jesus Christ. Accept Him as your Savior. He died for you, and we have to die for Him. We have to give up ourselves for Him. And then in 51, let's see, where am I here? 51 and 52, He asked the disciples if they understood the parables, and they said, yes, Lord. They cared. They believed in Him. They were given a discerning mind. And he says in 52, therefore every teacher and interpreter of the word has become a disciple is like a householder, which is, I guess, a guy who owns a house and brings out of his storehouse treasures that are new and old. And this is kind of like is telling them that, you know, if you understand the word, you understand the old word, you understand the new word, you understand the Old Testament, which is rich in stories about normal people who mess up but then become righteous. The New Testament is about Jesus Christ, which is our only way to heaven. We have to know the whole book. We're starting in the New Testament here because, frankly, I just felt led to start in the New Testament. It's Jesus Christ. It's everything. Everything is Jesus. Jesus is the King of the universe. Jesus created the universe. We'll find out later. And He is God, but He's separate from God. He's God in human form, and I don't understand all that, but we need to know the whole Bible, the Old and the New. And then we're qualified to teach the Word. I don't know if I'm qualified to teach the Word or not, but I'm doing it as much for myself as anything. And 53 through the end of the chapter 58, Jesus finished these and went into His own home of Nazareth, and He taught in their synagogues, where they were, at first they were amazed, and they were just incredibly awed by His power and His wonder and His knowledge. And then they came to the realization, wait a minute, this guy grew up among us. Isn't this Mary's son, the carpenter? And they asked about his family. Yeah, this is that guy. And all of a sudden they don't like him anymore. In fact, in another gospel later, they tried to actually kill him. And Jesus said, prophet has honor except in his own country. And He didn't do many works there and left. And I just think it's, you know, they didn't believe it because they grew up with the guy. They weren't ready to admit that he was who he was. I mean, he was just a regular guy to them, and they just couldn't understand how a person from that country could do these kind of things. I believe they were jealous and just didn't believe him because, hey, he's better than me. You know, that's not possible. Anyway, we're done with 14. I would just pray that everyone would come to Jesus, accept Him, give in, make the decision, right or wrong, left or right, up or down, 0 or 1. Jesus is it. See you tomorrow.